Since ancient times, many civilizations have risen and fallen, leaving only remnants behind in history. However, one group of people remains wrapped in an intriguing mystery: the Amalekites. Did you know they were the first to attack the Israelites shortly after they left Egypt? But who exactly were they? Where did they go? Do they still exist today? The Amalekites were direct descendants of Amalek, the grandson of Esau. They formed a distinct tribe, separate from others, even though they were related to the children of Jacob. Their relationship with Israel, however, was defined by fierce and violent conflicts. But what became of them throughout history? The Bible recounts multiple battles against the Amalekites, and many believe they were completely wiped out. But is that the full story? In today's video, we will dive into this mystery, exploring biblical and historical records, as well as theories about the possible fate of Amalek's descendants. Did they truly vanish, or could they still be scattered across the Middle East today? Stay with us until the end, because what we are about to reveal might completely change the way you see this enigmatic people. Who are the Amalekites today? The mystery of their disappearance has puzzled historians for centuries. The name Amalek itself carries a deep historical enigma. In Hebrew, it is pronounced Amalek, and in both Hebrew and Aramaic biblical texts, they are described as Israel's sworn enemies. But what does the name really mean? Where did it originate? Most scholars agree that the true origin of the name remains uncertain. However, there are fascinating theories suggesting that Amalek may not have been just a name, but rather a title or designation with a deeper meaning than we might assume. Some ancient rabbinic interpretations attempt to decipher this mystery. According to one such explanation, Amalek could be broken down into two Hebrew words: Am, meaning people, nation, or kin, and Lak, possibly linked to Lashon language. This interpretation led some rabbis to suggest that Amalek could mean a people who lick. In certain rabbinic traditions, this idea was expanded to a people who lick blood, reinforcing their reputation as ruthless enemies of Israel. However, it is important to note that the Hebrew word for blood, dam, does not appear in the name Amalek, which suggests that this interpretation may have been a later rabbinic construction based on their violent portrayal in biblical texts. Renowned linguist and Semitic language expert Richard C. Steiner proposed an intriguing theory regarding the origin of the name Amalek. According to him, the term may derive from the Egyptian expression MRQJ, which can be translated as hostile Asian, brutal Asian, or more loosely, brutal Shasu. The Shasu were an ancient group of Semitic nomads. If this theory is correct, Amalek may have been identified as a fierce Semitic tribe known for its warrior-like brutality and resistance. In ancient Aramaic, the name Amalek carries a meaning different from its Hebrew counterpart. In this context, it conveys the idea of a people who carried away, or a people who took, suggesting that they were associated with conquest, plunder, or forced displacement. According to Hebrew and Aramaic biblical texts, Amalek was the son of Eliphaz, who was a direct descendant of Esau, the ancestor of the Edomites and the twin brother of Jacob Israel. Amalek's mother, a concubine named Timnah, also has an interesting background. Timnah belonged to the Hurrian people, an ancient civilization that lived in the Mesopotamian region and had strong connections with Indo-European cultures. The history of the Amalekites is filled with contradictions and mysteries. Did they truly disappear, or could their descendants still be living among us today? Join us as we uncover the historical, biblical, and linguistic clues behind this ancient enigma. The presence of the Hurrians in Amalek's lineage raises several important questions about the ethnic background and cultural influences of the ancient Near Eastern peoples. Could Amalek have been a warrior of mixed ancestry, shaped by both Semitic and Indo-European traditions? Did he inherit not only a strong identity but also the military resilience and warrior culture of these ancient civilizations? One often overlooked detail in Amalek's history is the possible reason his mother, Timnah, chose his name. In Aramaic, Amalek translates to the people who took, or the people who carried away. But which people does this refer to? The answer may be found in Timnah's own origins and the history of her people. Timnah was of Hurrian descent, belonging to a group that once controlled strategic regions of the Near East, but gradually lost their lands to Semitic invaders. Her son Amalek was born from her union with Eliphaz, the son of Esau. Eliphaz, in turn, became a leader of a Semitic people who took over Hurrian territories. This suggests that the name Amalek may reflect a historical reality. He descended from a lineage shaped by both invasion and resistance. The historian Flavius Josephus refers to Amalek in a derogatory way, calling him a bastard, which could imply his status as the son of a concubine. In many ancient cultures, this status often placed individuals on the margins of nobility. However, despite this, Genesis 36:16 describes Amalek as a tribal chief, indicating that he held authority over a clan or region that later bore his name. A particularly mysterious reference to Amalek appears in the enigmatic oracle of Balaam, found in the Book of Numbers. Here, Amalek is given the title, the first of the nations, a phrase that has sparked various interpretations over the centuries. Some modern scholars believe this phrase highlights the Amalekites' great antiquity, while the famous commentator Rashi offers a more military interpretation, suggesting it means Amalek was the first to wage war against Israel. The Amalekites, traditionally regarded as descendants of Amalek through Esau's lineage, lived in key strategic areas, including the Negev and the Sinai Desert in the southern Levant. Their constant raids and conflicts made them a nomadic or semi-nomadic people, moving through the arid lands and open steppes of ancient Israel near the region of Kadesh. This connection to the land is also noted in Genesis 14:7, which mentions the presence of Amalekites in the area even before their supposed genealogical origin. This raises an interesting question. Did the Amalekites exist as a distinct people before Amalek himself? Some scholars believe this suggests that they may have been an independent group who later assimilated or were associated with Amalek's lineage. However, there is another possible explanation for this seeming contradiction. Many researchers propose that the author of Genesis, traditionally believed to be Moses, used geographic and cultural references from his own time to describe earlier historical events. This means that when Genesis 14:7 refers to the Amalekites, Moses may have simply been using a familiar term to describe a people who had lived in that region in the past, rather than indicating that they were the same group that later became Israel's adversaries. If this interpretation is accurate, the Amalekites mentioned in Genesis may not be the same as those from Moses' time. Instead, they could have been a different group that lived in the land where the biblical Amalekites would later settle. Regardless of their exact origins, the Amalekites appear repeatedly in the Old Testament as persistent enemies of Israel. Their first direct clash with the Israelites is recorded in Exodus 17:8-16, occurring shortly after the Israelites' escape from Egypt. The most significant moment in this confrontation was the Battle of Rephidim. The Amalekites launched an unexpected attack on the Israelites, forcing Moses to organize a defense. During the battle, an unusual event took place. Moses' role was not just as a leader, but also as a spiritual figure. His brother Aaron and his companion Hur helped him keep his hands raised in prayer. Whenever Moses lifted his hands, the Israelites gained the upper hand in battle. However, when his arms grew tired and lowered, the Amalekites began to take control. This episode became one of the most symbolic moments in the Bible, demonstrating the idea that Israel's victories depended not just on military strength, but also on divine support. In the end, the Israelites triumphed, but their conflict with the Amalekites did not end there. It lasted for generations. The Amalekites appear throughout the Old Testament as recurring enemies of Israel. They are mentioned in several books, including Numbers, where the prophet Balaam refers to them in an enigmatic prophecy. They are also present in Judges, 1 Samuel, 1 Chronicles, and Psalms, for example, Psalm 83:7. Despite facing multiple defeats at the hands of the Israelites, the Amalekites were never completely destroyed. Every time they were subdued, a remnant would survive and rise again to continue their struggle. The last biblical reference to the Amalekites is found in the Book of Esther, which takes place during the Persian Empire. In this story, Haman, a high-ranking Persian official, devises a plot to exterminate the Jewish people, a plan that echoes the ancient conflicts between Israel and Amalek. Many scholars believe that Haman was a descendant of the Amalekites, suggesting that this once nomadic and warlike tribe managed to endure for centuries, eventually spreading and assimilating into other cultures. If this theory is correct, it is possible that in their later history, the Amalekites began to settle in Persia while still maintaining their presence in their traditional homelands in the Negev and Sinai. Beyond biblical records, archaeological findings also hint at the existence of the Amalekites. The Negev Desert, known for hosting various semi-nomadic groups throughout history, contains physical traces that could be linked to them. Among the most significant evidence are fortified settlements discovered in the highlands of the Negev and in Tarsos, near Beersheba. Some researchers believe that Tarsos might be the same as Horma, a city mentioned in biblical accounts of the battles between Israel and the Amalekites. These discoveries suggest that the Amalekites may have left more than just a historical and biblical legacy. They could have also left physical marks on the land, hinting at their once dominant presence in the region. If this connection is accurate, King Saul's military campaigns against the Amalekites may have been driven by more than just biblical conflict. They may have had a strategic purpose, controlling copper production at Tarsos. Copper was a crucial resource for making weapons and tools, which made the Amalekites an important force in territorial and economic struggles of the time. Other archaeological discoveries, such as the fortresses at Tel el-Kudirat and Horvat Halim in the Negev, dating between the 11th and 10th centuries BC, provide further evidence that supports biblical accounts of the conflicts involving Saul, David, and the Amalekites. Whether they were a nomadic tribe, a warrior clan, or a persistent historical lineage, the Amalekites remained a recurring enemy of Israel for centuries. But were they truly wiped out, or did they simply merge with other groups, disappearing from scripture but not from history? One of the most intriguing mysteries about the Amalekites is their ultimate fate. Where did Esau's descendants go? Many have pondered this question over the years, and the most plausible answer is that they still exist today, though heavily blended with other Semitic tribes in the Middle East. But how did this happen? How could a people frequently mentioned in biblical accounts, who fought in numerous wars against Israel and even challenged powerful kings like Saul and David, simply vanish? The truth is, many ancient Semitic groups, including the Midianites, Ammonites, Moabites, and the Amalekites themselves, gradually intermingled with each other and with other populations in the region. This blending of cultures is a common historical pattern, especially in areas like the Middle East, which has long been a crossroads of trade and warfare. For example, the Edomites can be traced through historical records up until the Persian period. After that, however, they disappear from written sources just like the Amalekites. This does not mean they were completely wiped out, but rather that they were assimilated into other cultures and lost their distinct identity. If we look at the lands they once occupied, it is highly likely that their genetic heritage remains within the populations of these regions today. So, which modern countries might have people with Amalekite or Edomite ancestry? Jordan. The ancient Edom was located in what is now Jordan, especially around Petra, which was once its capital before being absorbed by the Nabateans. Israel and Palestine. Some Arab populations in these areas may have Edomite, Midianite, or Amalekite roots, as ancient Semitic groups frequently mixed and migrated. Saudi Arabia. Certain northern Bedouin tribes may trace their ancestry back to the Edomites, who might have moved south over time. Syria and Iraq. Due to centuries of migrations and conflicts, it is possible that Amalekite and Edomite groups spread into these regions. However, without conclusive genetic studies, these connections remain speculative. What is clear is that historically, the Amalekites did not completely vanish. They were gradually absorbed into other societies in the Middle East. Today, the Edomites are still present in Middle Eastern populations, particularly among Jordanians, Palestinians, and even some groups in Saudi Arabia. As for the Amalekites, it is highly probable that their genetic legacy still exists, especially in Jordan, particularly in the southern mountain regions. Some Bedouin tribes in this area may carry traces of ancient Edomite ancestry in their DNA. Although no modern group identifies itself as Amalekite, their heritage has likely survived through the centuries. The Edomite and Amalekite lineage persists within various Middle Eastern populations, particularly among Palestinians. Some genetic studies have suggested that certain Palestinian groups carry traits that point to Edomite, and possibly Amalekite, ancestry. It is important to remember that the Amalekites were a branch of the Edomite people. Though they had a distinct identity, they were still part of the larger Semitic lineage. Historical records indicate that the Edomites remained present in the region until the 1st century, during the time of Jesus Christ. After that, however, they disappeared from historical texts. Yet their legacy, like that of the Amalekites, likely continues in the DNA of modern Middle Eastern populations. However, we believe that many of them converted to Judaism and started living among the Jewish people, with some intermarrying over time. Because of this, it is very likely that many Jewish individuals today carry traces of Edomite and even Amalekite ancestry in their DNA. If you are interested in learning more about these ancient groups, who are rarely discussed on YouTube, let us know in the comments. Wishing you God's blessings, and we hope to see you again soon.